Hi everyone, David and Gino here taking a look at one of the feature races on Saturday at Saratoga. Actually, the first stakes race taking place on this Saturday card is coming pretty early in the day. Race 2 is the Grade 3 Kelso going 1 mile on the inner turf course for the 3 and up runners. And Gino, it's only a 5 horse field entered for the turf with one MTO, but it's not one of those 5 horse fields where there's one clear cut favorite. It's a pretty competitive affair.
Yeah, there are three horses that I think you've got pretty evenly matched as far as the morning line odds are concerned. And in these smaller fields, David, a lot of the time you get paces that are a little bit different than if it were a bigger field. Some of these horses may have to do things maybe that are outside of their norm if they wanted to sit back and make one late run. It's a little more difficult to do so in a small field where you probably have to be forced a little bit early. You want to be more tactical and you just don't want to be caught wide or be caught giving up lengths and giving up ground in a small field like this.
I think that's very true. I mean, it's a cliche, but this does feel like it's going to be a rider's race because there are plenty of horses with similar running styles, and you don't want to lose too much ground, especially when so many of the runners are going to be able to save ground towards the inside. You don't want to be that one that's caught three wide around both turns, and we'll see if that's the case for the number 5, Carl Spackler. I know he's had some wide trips in recent starts. I did make the morning line favorite, the number 2, Mysterious Knight, going out for those very popular connections of Godolphin and Charlie Appleby. He is one of 3 exiting the Grade 3 poker on the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival weekend. Well, let's take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector to get a sense of how these runners might sort themselves out in the early stages. And I think this Pace Projector is a little bit inconclusive, Gino, and that's kind of the way I saw the race. I think it's going to be incumbent on the riders to decide which one really wants to be aggressive.
Yeah, and I think they have the right 3 horses up front. It wouldn't shock me to see any combination of Talk of the Nation, Call Me Harry, and Northern Invader on the lead, or maybe in different positions with those 3 horses. And then probably you'll see Mysterious Knight and Carl Spackler try to stack right behind them. If it were to work out that way, everybody would probably be pretty content with their positioning. And then it will just come down to, who's the most live on Saturday, who's got the most late punch. So I'm not sure if it's a field where they're all going to be going at it early, but definitely some real jockeying for position early on.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And we'll see if Talk of the Nation makes the front. He didn't get the most aggressive ride last time in the poker. We'll see if Irad Ortiz changes up the tactics this time. Let's go through these runners in program number order, beginning with the number 1, Call Me Harry. He's the outsider in this field, probably a horse that's running in this race to help make it go with 5 runners. Coming out of some lesser races for trainer Rick Dutrow, and he got into pretty good form in the second half of last season, but since coming back for his 8-year-old campaign, hasn't really shown that same form in 2 starts. Did show some improvement last time, but this is a big step up in class for a horse like this.
Yeah, and that was probably about as good of a trip as he could have hoped for last time out. This is a horse who likes Saratoga, obviously. So if we want to give some positives, a 3-time winner at Saratoga and making the 3rd start now of the form cycle off of the 7.5-month layoff, perhaps there could be another step forward here. But even with that step forward, I still feel like it would be a cut below the real top contenders in here. Yeah. So for me, just an outsider.
Yeah, at the very least, he could be a pace presence in this race. The number 2, Mysterious Knight, he is that morning line favorite. We'll take a look at his most recent start in the Grade 3 poker. Like I said, 3 runners coming out of this race. We'll highlight 2 of them here. Mysterious Knight with that white blaze, as well as Talk of the Nation. The chestnut to their outside is Carl Spackler. He's going to fade at the end of this race. Mysterious Knight, all in all, briefly has to wait for room here, but I thought it was a good trip overall. If you take in the entirety of his race, he saved ground around the turns, just followed the eventual winner, Ice Chocolat, along the rail, tipped out around Talk of the Nation in the stretch, and finished up decently for second. I didn't think that slight altering of course in the lane cost him the race whatsoever. And he's just a horse that got back into good form last time because he's been a little bit inconsistent through his career, but it does kind of feel like Godolphin and Charlie Appleby has figured him out over the past year or so.
Yeah, I feel like our sentiments are pretty similar with this one. It's not that I really have many knocks on him, but I didn't think that there were very many excuses for not maybe running a little bit better last time out. It wasn't like he had all that much trouble. Maybe the race shape was slightly against him, and he's definitely the measuring stick for this race. I think he's no doubt the horse that they'll all have to beat. But as far as price is concerned, I wouldn't be shocked if he's a little bit shorter. And I think as far on the win end, there might be a couple others that are a bit more intriguing. He is a Grade 1 winner, Group 1 winner, and a 3-time graded stakes winner. So this will be his 4th start in North America. We've got a Grade 1 win, a 3rd in a Grade 3, and then one other performance where he didn't really fire. But I think you pointed out the key. Did feel like he sort of tailed off a little bit, and that was a nice bounce back performance.
The number 3 is Northern Invader, and this horse has to be a little frustrating for the connections because we see the talent is there. He's bossed around some overmatched field and looked like a graded stakes quality horse on a few occasions, but it seems like when he steps up against those tougher foes, the graded stakes quality horses, he's not always able to run that same kind of race or put it all together, and he's certainly facing a pretty tough field on Saturday.
Yeah, and he got the lead last time out at Churchill Downs in the Arlington. He lost to a horse named Ottoman Fleet, who won the Grade 2 Wise Dan next out. And that's a 5-time group stakes winner who's pretty sharp and won 3 of the last 4, but gets the lead, got slight pressure to the outside by a horse that was a long shot named Irish Aces. And that rival was actually able to outfinish him that day. So as far as winning this race, I'm not sure. I'm going to end up putting him, I think, in the 3rd spot, because I feel like if you're trying to find any value in this race in any sort of exotics, this might be the horse, just because there is a little versatility here. That's actually what's intrigued me with him. I agree with you at this class level. I don't know if he's able to compete with the top few, and I'd have a hard time seeing him beat Mysterious Knight and Talk of the Nation and Carl Spackler. Could he outfinish 1 or 2 of them and hit the board in here? Maybe, and maybe that's how you can get some value in this race.
And in many ways, I think Northern Invader is going to be key to the fortunes of the number 4 Talk of the Nation, because like you said, he's got that versatility. He can go forward. They can also come from off the pace. I think Irad Ortiz and the connections of Talk of the Nation would be happy to see Jose and Northern Invader take back, because Talk of the Nation wants to be forwardly placed. And I think Irad made a slight tactical error last time in the poker when he let Ice Chocolat just waltz along on the front end through fractions that were probably a little slower than he realized. Ice Chocolat had previously been a deep closer in his races, and the connections decided to take advantage of a paceless race and send him to the front. And I think it took away Talk of the Nation's best weapon, which is his speed. We saw him use it to better effect 2 back when he ran Carl Spackler to a head decision in the opening verse at Churchill Downs. He was second best that day, but I thought he was still game to battle back into a photo finish. And he's just run well in all of his turf races. And I think you can rely on him to show up. We'll see if he's fast enough to clear from post 4.
Yeah, he's really honest. You really know what you're going to get from Talk of the Nation in here. For me, when it comes to selections, and we'll get there in just a moment, the 3 horses that are all going to be forwardly placed or could be forwardly placed, I feel like they just may hinder each other's chances in this race. And I'm not sure if any of them will get enough of an advantage tactically, because there are a couple other horses who have those similar tactics and could also be employing, those front running, those front running strategies here as well. So for Talk of the Nation, he fits class-wise with this group, and now 3rd start off the bench, 3rd start as a 4-year-old. It would not be shocking at all to see him take 1 step forward. I do sometimes wonder, as you were pointing out with Irad, some of the times I feel like with this situation, with the horse who has speed and who also can be close, that's one of the times where it's a little bit tricky, and that may be one of his, I think, weaknesses as a rider, where he's very good at judging with pace and kind of coming from behind and making that move. I think sometimes where you get kind of caught in between, and do you have to go or do you have to grab a hold and sit? We'll see if they can do that with Talk of the Nation today or on Saturday.
A horse that's going to be looking for those 3 speeds to all go out towards the front end is the number 5, Carl Spackler. And I think you can argue he might be the most naturally talented horse in this race if they all run to their best efforts. And we saw that too back in the opening verse when he only beat Talk of the Nation by a head, but he was much the best that day, going 3 wide around both turns and gutting out that victory. And last time in the poker, the trip didn't work out for him, obviously. He was 3 wide around both turns again, and you can't have that happen in a race that doesn't feature a whole lot of pace. But I still didn't like the way he was unable to produce a kick in the stretch. So it was a step in the wrong direction for Carl Spackler, but he has bounced back from poor efforts in the past. And like I said, I think his best can beat this field.
Yeah, I completely agree. We can make a little bit of an excuse for him. I don't think he was going to win the race last time out with the trip that he had, but I very much agree with you. And I'm saying this as someone who's going to pick Carl Spackler in here. I really didn't have very much reason and legitimate excuse for why he didn't finish on better, or at least just seem more competitive late in that race. When, as we pointed out, it wasn't like Mysterious Knight got a perfect trip or others had the most ideal circumstances, and they still were able to finish on better than him. And in his prior race, Carl Spackler was a little wide and finished on much better after an inopportune trip. So I'm just going to, as a gambler, give him a pass for that race and put a line right through it, because the way I'm projecting this race to shape out, I think he can sit really nicely in the 2nd tier, right behind maybe 2 or 3 horses that are in that top group, and possibly even be pinning in a horse like Mysterious Knight and maybe get the opportunity to pick when he wants to make his move with the outside draw. So maybe in this particular case, the outside can be a benefit for him instead of a hindrance, which it was when he was wide last time out.
Well, that's the main body of the field entered for turf. We're hoping that the number 6 Rebel Rocks doesn't get to participate because he is a main track only entrant, and it doesn't seem likely this race would come off the turf. But let's head into our picks. And Gino, as you already previewed, you're going to put the number 5 Carl Spackler on top. And he's a horse that's been pretty popular with the bettors over his last several starts, but maybe you might get a slightly better price this day as a horse that won't go favored with Mysterious Knight in the race.
I think the last time he lost, after he lost, he was the best price that we've had in quite some time, which was just about 5-2. Not much of a price on him, as you mentioned, but I do think that with the third start of the form cycle now, making his third start now as a 4-year-old, and just feeling always like he had an upside that might just be better than the rest of this field, as you pointed out. I feel like if they were all to show up with their best effort and we got the best version of themselves in here, Carl Spackler would probably win this race. So I'm going to go with him, and maybe we do get a little bit of value there. No surprise with Mysterious Knight, very logical with Mysterious Knight there in the second spot. And as I pointed out, I mean, Northern Invader, Talk of the Nation, I was just going to go between the two of them. I ended up going with Northern Invader in the third spot just to provide a little bit of value, and maybe that versatility could come in handy late in the race for a minor placing.
Yeah, we're both slightly against Mysterious Knight just based on value. I don't disagree with your take on Carl Spackler. I kind of do agree he's the horse to beat in this race. Talk of the Nation, I'm just hoping that he gets that more aggressive ride. I have the same concerns that you do about Irad not being consistently aggressive in these situations, but I'm hoping he's going to react to that mistake that was made last time and send this horse to the front end, because we have seen him carve out some pretty quick fractions in the past and still be around at the wire. So the number 4 Talk of the Nation for me, the number 5 Carl Spackler for Gino in the grade 3 Kelso on Saturday at Saratoga. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.